In December 1235, 5 children of a miller residing in the vicinity of the city of Fulda, Hesse, Nassau, were murdered, in consequence of which 34 Jews and Jewesses were slaughtered by the Crusaders. The Jews were accused of the deed, and those put to the torture are said to have confessed that they murdered the children in order to procure their blood for purposes of healing. It is necessary to note here, 1. That the reports say nothing of the presence of witnesses. 2. That the confessions were elicited through torture and were consequently worthless. 3. That these confessions speak only of the intention to procure a remedy, a remedium, and contain no reference to ritualistic ceremonies. 4. That the German Emperor Frederick II, in order to sift the matter thoroughly, invited a large number of scholars and distinguished Jewish converts to Christianity from all parts of Europe who, in the answer to the question whether the Jews required Christian blood for their Passover ceremonies, replied, "Neither the Old nor the New Testament states that the Jews lust for human blood. On the contrary, it is expressly stated in the Bible, in the laws of Moses, and in the Jewish ordinances designated in Hebrew as the Talmud, that they should not defile themselves with blood. Those to whom even the tasting of animal blood is prohibited surely cannot thirst for that of human beings. Because of the horror of the thing, because it is forbidden by nature, because of the human tie that also binds the Jews to Christians, and because they would not willfully imperil their lives and property." The judgment of the emperor reads, "For these reasons we have decided, with the general consent of the governing princes, to exonerate the Jews of the district from the grave crime with which they have been charged, and to declare the remainder of the Jews in Germany free from all suspicion." Many popes have either directly or indirectly condemned the blood accusations. Pope Gregory X, for example, issued a letter on the Jews, 1271-76, called "Against the Blood Libel," rejecting the blood libel accusations, and no pope has ever sanctioned it, though the assertions are usually spread and promoted by local clergy to serve their own self-interests. It is an obscenity of theology and justice, let alone of morality, that the Jews, who are utterly forbidden by the Torah, the law of Moses, from consuming any blood whatsoever. That is why kosher meat is carefully washed and salted to remove all traces of blood, were and are precisely the people accused of drinking human blood. The blood libel makes even less sense when one considers that in the 13th century, during the Fourth Lateran Council of 1215, the Church Fathers adopted the doctrine of transubstantiation. This is the dogma which maintains that when the priest says Mass over the wafer and wine, these objects mystically change into the body and blood of Jesus. Hence, Christians who consume the wafer and drink the wine are said to be mystically eating the flesh of Jesus and drinking his blood. Leviticus 17.10. "And whoever there is of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who eats any kind of blood, I will set my face against that soul who eats blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes an atonement for the soul. Therefore I said to the people of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, nor shall any stranger who sojourns among you eat blood." Leviticus 19.26. "You shall not eat anything with the blood, for it is the life of all flesh. The blood of it is for its life. Therefore I said to the people of Israel, you shall not eat the blood of any kind of flesh, for the life of all flesh is its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off." Deuteronomy 12.16. "Only you shall not eat the blood. You shall pour it upon the earth like water." Contrary to all the anti-Jewish accusations and libel that the Jews use human blood in their unleavened bread, the Torah's categorical prohibitions against eating blood are crystal clear, and the penalty is death. Unfortunately, Muhammadan Muslim scholars, knowing full well that there is absolutely no basis for these obscene and unsubstantiated allegations, follow faithfully and blindly the footsteps of their mentor Muhammad, with his usual depraved indifference to facts, to reality, to morality, to justice, or to the historical record, do not shrink from repeating this libel in all forms of their news media. Only 2 years ago, for example, the Egyptians produced a very long series depicting Jews ritually slaughtering a Christian boy so as to mix his blood with the Passover matzah, the unleavened bread. They showed this diabolical and insightful program during the holy month of Ramadan to a captive audience of hundreds of millions of Mohammedan Muslims all around the globe. Pictures are 1,000-fold more effective than words on paper. This is Islamofascism at its worst. So-called believers and unbelievers, please also remember that it was Muhammad who asserted that silence means consent. Bukhari Hadith 9.101, narrated by Aisha. That is why the so-called Muslim moderates never, ever demonstrate anywhere in the world, at any time, against those so-called extremists who are visiting death and destruction against both believers and unbelievers in the names of Allah and Islam. They not once proclaimed in a public demonstration saying, "Not in our name." The reason is as obvious as it is simple. Although they are not actively aiding and abetting the fundamentalist Mohammedan terrorists, they are most assuredly condoning their actions. Once again, I would like to remind you that it was Muhammad who said, "Silence means consent." Ladies and gentlemen, please listen carefully to the following very relevant and poignant statements. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is that for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke, 19th century English statesman. And finally, first they came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by that time there was no one left to speak up for me. This was German pastor Martin Niemöller, written in Dachau concentration camp in 1944. This subject is a very important lesson in anti-Semitism or Jew baiting. One can say anything about the Jews, no matter how far-fetched or untrue, but people will still believe it. All dictators and authoritarian regimes started by first attacking the Jews. All others were targeted afterwards.